Hello, everybody. My name is Luisa Moreno. I am here as president of Defense Metals to discuss our rare earth project. We are part of the discovery group of companies, and we are located in British Columbia. We have some just key highlights about Defense Metals. So we have a very high quality asset. It's 100% owned by us. It's a Wachida Rare Earth project. It has excellent accessibility. That's important, especially comparing with other mining projects and other rare earth mining projects in Canada. So ours is by far the one that has very good accessibility. We also have a very technical, strong team, and that's very important because in rare earths and some other critical materials, yes, having large resources is important, it's good, and having high grade is good as well. But more important is the metallurgy, is the ability to process the material and recover the rare earths. And for that, one needs a really strong technical team, which we do have. So currently, we are in the pre-feasibility stage, and I will go over every one of these points in more detail. So this is our team. I am the president and director. Craig Taylor is the CEO and a director as well. We have very, as I mentioned, very key technical team, including John Good, who is somebody that has worked in many rare earth projects around the world. Another person that I would bring attention to is Dr. William Bird. He was CEO of two rare earth companies, a PhD in mineralogy, and an important contributor as well for the development of our project. So right now, our market cap, this is in US dollars, it's about 40 million. Market is down for many of the junior mining companies, giving a fantastic, I believe, opportunity, entry point for investors. So the company is not very well known relative to others that have been in the market now for more than 10 years. So Defense Metals with the Wachida project really has been around since 2018. And in the last 4 or 5 years, the company has worked to the point where, as I mentioned, we are now at pre-feasibility stage, which we intend to complete next year. So for those of you that don't know much about rare earth, I must say, you know, it's used in every single sector that you can imagine. Obviously, one of the critical sectors right now is, you know, what we will call the automotive space for electric vehicles, as well as power generation, particularly wind turbines. But it's also used in agriculture, healthcare, in MRI scanners, and of course in defense applications, hence the name of the company. So Canada is currently not a producer, but we want to introduce Canada definitely as a producer. We were a producer in the past, many years ago, but currently in North America, the only production comes from Mountain Pass, you know, in the United States. What this slide is really showing is that although China only produces about 60% or mines about 60%, really processes most of the material around the world, including the one that comes from Mountain Pass in the United States today. So it's important to build a supply chain outside China, and that's what we want to do. We want to contribute to about 25,000 tons and really do the cracking and separation outside China. This slide essentially just shows in a nutshell that for one application only, which is electric vehicles, one would have to, what we would have to do is to double the production of rare earth, you know, in order to be able to produce the necessary neodymium, praseodymium, which is NdPr, to supply the electric vehicle market. So in terms of demand is very strong across the board, and it has been. So in 2010, 2012, the total world production was about 110,000 tons, according to USGS. And 10 years later, or even now, last year was about 280,000 tons. And that's without any electric vehicles, extreme demand from electric vehicles and other green technologies, which is just a natural demand from existing sectors. So demand for rare earths is very strong for renewables, electric vehicles, and defense and others and other applications. So in terms of our project, what you see here is basically our camp. It is located about 80 kilometers of Prince George, which is a major town in British Columbia. One actually can drive from this major town. You can see here the train yard with many tracks. One can drive from there to the site, which is unique for mining projects. And so what you also see is a port. It's the third largest port. It's called the Prince Rupert Port. It's the third largest port in Canada. It's about 500 kilometers away by rail from our project. So this is our updated resource. We recently put this out. We have measured resource of 6.4 million tons at 2.86 TREO, total rare earth oxides, and indicated about 27.8 million at 1.84 total rare earth oxides. And so in terms of, this slide shows the model, conceptual pitch shell. And sorry, I just go back here again. And so essentially, what I would like to show you is that the high grade here depicted in the light colors, the light greens and light yellows, are effectively at the surface. And so this means that according to our models, that in the first few years of production, we're looking at relatively high grade, definitely more than 2%, as high as 3 or 4%. And that will generate one important point for us, which is very high grade mineral concentrate. So this is our flow sheet, straightforward in some senses, mining, crushing, and then flotation. From the flotation, we can produce a sellable mineral concentrate. We are just one of the few handful of projects in the world that can actually do that. We also, then following that, we do acid bake and then leaching and precipitate the various impurities to end up with the sellable then rare earth precipitate that it's also, which will be our product in terms of the PEA. So for the pre-feasibility study, we may actually go into separate oxides, but that is ongoing. This is one of the most important points that I would like to highlight here, which is the fact that, again, we produce a very high-grade flotation product that is essential for the economics of a rare earth project. All hard rock projects in the world today produce a high-grade concentrate at relatively high recoveries. That's important. And we, as I said, maybe other 5 or 6 companies outside China are actually able to achieve that, which makes us economic potentially, and the differentiators from 300 other projects, rare earth projects. So here, essentially, what I would like to show you, DCXE, this just really talks about the various types of lithologies or mineralogies that we test in the deposit. The most predominant and the one that will be mined the first 9 years is the DC. And you can see here an example where, if we produce a 40% concentrate like liners in Australia, we actually getting an 85% recovery rate, which is really good. Our tests, hydrometallurgical tests, also generated relatively high recoveries. And this is just showing that following the mineral concentrate production, the next stage is this hydrometallurgy process. And we're using acid bake, and the results that we saw was relatively good as well. So again, this is probably one of the most important slides that I'm going to show you. what you're seeing is Wachita project at the top, and then we have a number of other projects, not projects, rather producers in the world. So we're just trying to compare. So you can see all the other producers, or the main producers, Mountain Pass, Mount Weld, both outside China, BioNoble, which is the largest producer in the world. Then we have another example here from China, from Sichuan. And all of them have relatively high grade, maybe perhaps with the exception of Sichuan, but they all produce this high grade mineral flotation concentrate. So Mount Weld in Australia, Lynas, as I mentioned, produces a 40% grade. And comparing to us, we should be able to produce something similar. Again, you see our recoveries very similar to theirs. The slide before I actually showed you for the 45% TREO in the first few years, we can actually get recoveries which are much higher than Lynas, and frankly much higher than Mountain Pass or BioNoble as well, but they have higher grade and produce a higher flotation. So we are in very good shape to advance this project compared to our peers. So this is where we are. We have completed hydromet pilot plant. We have started our pre-feasibility study, and now we are doing as well advanced environmental studies. We have, in terms of First Nations in the area, we have signed an agreement with the First Nations, a development agreement. They're very supportive of the project, which is very positive for us. And so the second quarter of 2023, which we are now, we are optimizing and scaling up the flotation and hydromet pilot plant. Actually, I should say we already done that, and that was completed. And so we effectively are at full force with the pre-feasibility study. We have collected the data, and perhaps we will go back to the lab if Hatch, which is the engineering firm that is responsible for the metallurgical part of the pre-feasibility, requires us to repeat some tests and so forth. But we produce samples out of the pilot plant, and we are in the process of packaging them and sending them to the various end users or potential end users. So next year, as I said, the first quarter, or in the first half of the year, I would say, we intend to complete the pre-feasibility study. And right after, markets, being good, and we expect to jump right after to start the feasibility study, which should be completed by the end of 2025. So this is where we are, relatively, advanced with all the various positive pilot plans. And moving forward, we think we are a very one of the strongest rare earth projects in the world, and definitely the strongest in Canada. And that's it. I'll take questions now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there's still 5 minutes left for questions. You're welcome to post questions in the chat. Currently, there are none in the chat. So a few questions from my side. So what are the key objectives and expected outcomes of the phase 2 infrastructure and the open pit geological drilling at the Wichita Rare Earth Element Project? And how do these activities support the ongoing preliminary feasibility study?
Right. So we have to, as you said, is all part of the pre-feasibility study. We have SRK, which is a very experienced firm in the area of mining and building mines. And so we need to do a number of geotechnical tests and studies to be able to test for the integrity of a future mining pit, as well as test for a location where buildings would be positioned, and also very important, where our tailings will be. And in the process, they have done several geotechnical drilling, and And we have seen from that actually an extension to our existing pit shell, which hopefully will lead to an increase in resources and potentially even mine life.
And could you elaborate on the significance of the newly identified radiometric anomalies near the Wichita rare earth element deposit and how they might impact the ongoing feasibility study?
Right, so they might not necessarily be immediately included in the existing pre-feasibility study. But what the significance of that is that we would have to go back likely and do more drilling, which was not really planned that much, because as you saw, we did quite a lot of drilling last year and beginning of this year, and we had established effectively a measured and indicated resource. And so, but in order to expand that, we will definitely have to go back and drill those new areas where we saw the favorable anomalies. And so once we drill, the significance of that is if we find what we believe we will find, which hopefully will correlate very well with some of the geotechnical tests that we've done as well. Well, I should say the assays that we received from or from the geotechnical drilling, and if all of that sort of correlates very well, if we continue seeing the high grade intersections, that should effectively lead to an increase in our resource, and potentially, as I said, an increase in mine life to and improve economics all around.
And what are the key highlights of the Defense Metal Corp's updated mineral resource estimate for the Wichita rare earth element deposit, and how does it compare to the previous estimate for 2021?
Right, it's very clear actually. So the previous one was mostly indicated. And now we have more of a measured and indicated. It was mostly indicated and inferred, and now we have upgraded what was indicated, mostly now being a measured category, and a lot that was inferred was upgraded to indicated. What essentially that shows is that there's a higher degree of confidence on those resources that now could, are likely going to be, can now be, further studied to be upgraded into proven and probable resources, or reserves rather, for the bankable feasibility study.
Okay. And the preliminary economic assessment, can that already be found on CEDA or not yet?
I think not yet, but as soon as it is, we will communicate the market.
Okay. So Luisa, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the very short but great presentation and all the answers of my questions.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.